Welcome to the December 4th meeting of the East Bay Regional Park District Board of Directors. Our first item of business tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance. Member Corbett, will you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and we'll move to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion by Member Wieskamp, a second by Member Corbett. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The agenda is set. We'll move now to public comments. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments?
Yes, President Wasby, we have 4 public comments.
Excellent. And if you did want to make a public comment on something that wasn't on tonight's agenda, this is the time to do it. And there will also be an opportunity at the end of the meeting for another public comment session.
Yes. Good evening. The first speaker is Chris Newey.
Sure. Welcome, Chris.
Chris Newey, President of AFSCME 2428, member of the Classification Compensation Study Task Force. President Wasby, Board of Directors, over a month ago, the Classification Compensation Task Force met to discuss comparable agencies to use in the ongoing study. Numerous task force members recommended the addition of East Bay MUD and the removal of Sonoma County due to its proximity to the East Bay and lower cost of living. At the November 29th Task Force meeting, we were informed that the district management had shut down the recommendation of adding East Bay MUD. The consultant also explained his reasoning on why keeping Sonoma County despite the recommendation to remove it. At this meeting, a management representative gave misleading information on the usage of East Bay MUD in the 2015 Management Compensation Study. Please see the page I handed to you. East Bay MUD was used in the total compensation data which supported the restructuring of management's compensation, which led to an additional 15% to their top step and additional merit step. East Bay MUD has numerous classifications that directly compare to our duties. They perform similar stewardship, and we have lost a lot of employees to East Bay MUD throughout my career at the district. Geographically, we are so similar that for many times there is no distinction to whose land you are on except for the different logos on the signs. I would also like to express that if you want AFSCME 2428 employees to take the results of this study seriously, show you have done your due diligence, and have performed your duties fairly and equally for all district employees, add East Bay MUD, compare us on an equal playing field. By suppressing the data, you're only splitting us further apart, proving we are valued not equally. For many years, your AFSCME 2428 employees have felt like they are treated second class when it comes to compensation and collective bargaining. This classification study was supposed to help correct that. Quoting Doug Johnson, Vice President of Ralph Anderson's and Associates, the more data, the better. Direct your management team to add East Bay MUD to the comparable agencies. Bring us together. Thank you for your time and service.
Thank you, Chris.
Our next speaker is Eric Holmes.
Good evening. My name is Eric Holmes. I am on the Executive Board of AFSCME Local 2428. Today I speak on a proposed human resources policy that was recently provided to the union. Under this new policy, district management would be allowed to use the district police department to conduct non-criminal personnel investigations into our members. We are opposed to the very premise of the district using police resources to conduct non-criminal personnel investigations into our members. Number one, we feel it is a misuse of taxpayer dollars to use the police department to investigate union members for non-criminal matters. Investigations have always been the purview of HR or their hired investigator, and we see no reason why police resources should be diverted to investigate non-police matters. Number two, the district has been operating successfully since our inception in 1934 without this policy. There's been no change that would warrant such an extreme change in policy now. Number three, while our members regularly interact with the police in our parks in a productive manner, it is an entirely different situation to be interviewed by the police. This new policy allows for the intimidating situation where the police ask the questions and we are forced to answer under the threat of losing our jobs. Now, the district management will say that they have the legal right to implement this policy, that our constitutional rights are still preserved, but ask yourselves if the policy is really needed. Is it necessary? What sorts of unintended consequences are possible? What sorts of abusive powers could come from this new policy? And what sort of workplace culture are you creating by effectively criminalizing non-criminal matters? We ask that the Board of Directors direct management to draft a policy that prohibits the use of the police to conduct non-criminal personnel investigations into our members. And we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Matthew James.
Good evening, members of the board, General Manager Doyle, and District Council Victor. My name is Matthew James, and I'm an employee here at the East Bay Regional Park District. I would like to say that I believe this proposed HR policy where police would be investigating non-criminal personnel issues is excessive, to say the least. I believe it is a completely inappropriate use of taxpayer funds, and it does not reflect good stewardship of the public's money. I believe that if another regional government agency that had much more exposure than the Park District, say either county that we're part of or any of the cities, particularly Oakland, were to do a policy like this, it would be met with a lot of public outcry and protest, most likely. And in addition, I do not think that this reflects a cooperative and trusting environment between management and staff members. And while there is some legal justification to the district being able to do this policy, there is still the right that membership and employees would have to have an attorney present at this. And if the district decides to move ahead with this policy, we will encourage all membership to have an attorney present at these hearings. And if they cannot have their own, then we will provide one for them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Kathleen Roth.
Hi. I wanted to address, before you approve the minutes from the last meeting, that my comments were left off about the Sibley land use planning. And that's not something I would usually pay attention to, except that I was the only person who spoke in favor of off-leash dogs. And I do represent about 200 other people who did not come to a Tuesday afternoon meeting. And I just want to quote this. This is from the Sibley EIR. 120 of 175 total letters, 120 comments pertaining to dogs, 108 of which were single-topic comment letters. Of the 120 comments, 113 comments expressed support for off-leash dog walking, and 52 specifically requested the McCosker Loop Trail. So I feel that some of that, or my comments, should have been referenced in the minutes from the last meeting. And the decision is made, and I'm not just kicking a dead horse over this, it's that there were a whole series of meetings, very constructive meetings last year with the Parks Advisory Committee, and I believe the decision was to continue on with Ordinance 38. And of course, there'll be many exceptions to that, but it seems to me that this McCosker area was just, well, it's near some areas where there'll be an exception, and so let's just keep it an exception. And I hope in going forward that that's not the thought process in the other new acquisitions.
Thank you for your comments. As you know, the process will continue, and we're going to hold meetings, and you will have, we duly note your comments, so thank you.
That's the last public comment.
That's it, Madam Clerk. And I appreciate the comments from our union members. I didn't know of this. I was wondering if we could get some type of report on this sometime in the future, not tonight. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
For the record, yes, we will bring back an update to the board.
Great, thank you. I don't know. Would you like to? Member Rosario.
Is it possible to amend the minutes to include Ms. Roth's statements?
Yes.
So we will deal with that. I'll personally pull the approval of the minutes of the board meeting on November 20th, and we will amend that to reflect your comments, or hopefully we will. All right, if there's no further public comments, we'll move right to the consent calendar, which contains 6 items. Madam Clerk, has anybody asked to pull any items, and if we could we pull the item B, the approval of the minutes of November 20th?
Yes, we'll do that.
And has anyone else asked for that?
Director Lane did have comments or questions on item C. It wasn't clear if it was a question or just a comment.
On A? And Director Corbett has a comment on item E. Okay, so the first item would be the approval of the minutes of the board meeting of November 20th. And I think we've had a comment from a member of the public who would like her comments on the dog. Not sure which side of the issue you're on, I apologize, but we will include your comments if you will write them down for us and give them to our clerk.
Well, they are on the, President Waspy, they are recorded. The only thing I would add is that the district doesn't do, we don't do.
That's true, we don't do verbatim minutes.
We do action minutes, but we will take a look at the recording.
Was that?
And
Mr.
reflect
Rosario, was that
that a
what you
comment
wanted
was
in this,
made.
out of this?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, if we can get her comments included, that would be wonderful.
I have a quick comment about the minutes, too, before we...
Member Corbett, go ahead.
I will provide my comments to the clerk, but I also wanted to point out, in understanding that we don't do verbatim minutes, there was also some very important comments about people working together to find common ground and work forward with the support of staff to make sure there is a process, and that wasn't clearly delineated in the actual written minutes either. So I will work with you to make sure that we find that and have that in the written minutes, because I think that's very important for us going forward to have this process work with everybody having their input.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I will, do you understand what we just said here, that your comments were reflected in the recorded documents that are our minutes of our meeting? Is that satisfactory to you? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you very much. I've forgotten that we're talking into microphones and we're recording all this. But
Director Wieskamp, if I may.
Director Waspy.
I apologize.
quite all right.
It's 6 o'clock at night. Director Waspy, if I may, the minutes will be corrected to reflect that a comment was made to encourage off-leash dog use as part of the Sibley Land Use Plan, and also Director Corbett's comment that the direction from the board was that staff engage in a process cooperatively with the stakeholders on trail uses.
Okay, thank you very much.
And it will be in the written record. Yes, thank you.
With that, we'll move to item C, Director Lane, and that we're dealing with the authorization to amend a contract with the Regents of the University of California for Oral Histories program.
Yes, I wanted to say, as I understand why we are moving in this direction to have oral histories done from that program, and what I'd like to ask is that we have additional information on who is interviewed and how many we are successfully doing each year.
Jim O'Connor, Assistant General Manager of Operations. I'd be glad to provide you with that information.
Okay, thank you. Well, and the whole board.
Yes, of course.
Thanks.
Member Rosario.
Follow-up question. I noted that there was a deletion of an intern for that program, and the answer I got back was that that intern was hired for specific objectives, and were those objectives met?
I'll check with Bev Ortiz and get back to you, but generally when we do interns, they're hired for a specific project, a short-term project, for a semester, and generally they're completed, but I can get back to you specifically about that one.
Okay, yeah. I think the oral history part of our cultural resources is very important, and I hate to lose an opportunity to continue and make sure that program's robust.
Yeah, we have an ebb and flow in intern assignments, between different departments. So one year Bev might have one or two of them. Next year maybe zero, but it kind of ebbs and flows depending on what her workload is and what she's focused on.
Okay, thank you.
And on this item, as I gaze out on the audience, I see some very prolific and famous historians. Do you have any? Are you here for comments on this issue?
We do have 3 public speakers.
Okay, good.
Four.
Excellent.
On item C.
I think we can deal with those folks. Let's do that now.
Our first member of the public is Richard Langs.
Welcome, Richard.
Thank you. I just wanted to specifically address the question of the archives and the oral histories benefit to the regional parks history, and mention some of the things that I personally have been able to do as a result of that. Most of you already know this, but it's worth double recording one more time. It all started in 2005 at the golf course when I met a guy named Jerry Kent, and who introduced me to Brendan Montano, and it all started there. And I've been going to the archives pretty much every week since then. As a result of that, and interaction with the family of past General Manager Richard Walpole, this document was added to the archives. It's the diary of Richard Walpole from 1937 to 1939. A lot of that information would not have been possible without the connection that was made from the archives to the family, back to me, and going around in a circle. Speaking of going around in a circle, my next book was The Merry-Go-Round, which was put together to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the merry-go-round. And I was delighted to have participated in that and met the people who operated the merry-go-round at that time, and others that have since come along. My third book was on in 2013, I drafted a book on Tilden Park, which has become my second home, was before that, and has remained my second home, and came out with this book, which was an abbreviated version of the history. In 2016, I was able to publish with the exhausted help of many, many people in the Park District and outside the Park District, the history of Tilden Park, which was, we published about 1,000 copies all told, and that has been fully distributed. My last book is coming out in April. It's a national publication of the same topic. Arcadia History Press is going to publish that, and I'm looking forward to that. So you go on Amazon and or their website, and you'll be able to get a copy of it anywhere in the country. My point of this is it's a incredibly useful atmosphere that's been created at the Park District, at the archives, and anything I can do to support it, I'm here to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lang.
Thank you, Richard, and we truly appreciate your books and your work in the archives. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Amelia Marshall.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amelia Marshall. I'm a 20-year Park District volunteer, and the past 6 years, in addition to trail safety work, I have been involved with the archives. And like Richard, I've been able to take advantage of the wonderful, well-managed archives to produce these 2 books so far. There'll be more. But let's talk tonight about the value of oral history. We appreciate very much the Park District's commitment to cultural stewardship as well as stewardship of natural resources. And one cautionary tale is Director Rosario will recall the sad case of Lydia Reyes Watley, who was on the backed up list of folks who were to be interviewed for an oral history, and she finally passed away at the age of 101. So we can give Dr. Bev Ortiz great credit for having streamlined the process of acquisition of oral history in partnership with the Bancroft Library at UC Berkeley Oral History Institute. I was fortunate to be accepted to that institute, and I enrolled this past August, and I was amazed at what there was to be learned there. It's not something you can do with an intern sticking a microphone in somebody's face. There are standards of professional practice. There are skills involved with getting the interview subjects to open up about the proper range of topics of their expertise. You need to have some tech support with your hardware, and I'm trying to start up an independent program like that, but the Park District deserves to have absolutely best professional practices which can be provided by the Oral History Institute at UC Berkeley. Bev has chosen wisely in partnering with these folks. Here at the district, not only do we have individuals who have specific knowledge of parklands and their history who deserve to have their voices included in this archive, but a lot of park staff, folks in this room who have unique and comprehensive knowledge that deserves to be captured and be made a part of the archives. So I'm here tonight to urge the board and the staff to make generous budgetary allocations to support the archives and the oral history program. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia, and thank you for your contributions and volunteerism.
Next speaker is Bill Vidar. Excuse me.
Sorry, I'm shorter than most everyone.
It's quite all right.
I'm a volunteer with the Archives Department, helping to digitize color slides, whatever historic documents there are. And I've created a vacuum table with a camera stand so we can actually digitize maps, artwork, and so on. And I'm here to support the idea that we are going to fund these oral history programs. I have had my writing disseminated among all of you, and I hope you read it. If you have any questions, I'll answer.
Anybody have any questions, comments on that? We all have them in front of us. Maybe we'll get back to you if we do, but thank you so much for your testimony to the history, and thank you so much for your work.
Okay.
I've watched you in action there. It's amazing, your process.
And our next speaker is someone we all know, Mr. Ned Mackay.
Thank you. My name's Ned Mackay. I'm a retired Park District employee, and I, like my friends here, I volunteer about weekly at the archives. And I would like to second all the comments that they made. The archives are kind of a, and the oral histories for that matter, are kind of a institutional memory of how we got to where we are today. And in that respect, there's inestimable value to them. Especially the oral histories, I would like to point out that, as did Amelia, there's a time factor involved here. Of course, there are many people whose oral histories would be a great contribution to the Park District record, but of course none of us will be around forever. So there is some urgency to this. Another thing I would like to point out is that Park District celebrates its 100th anniversary on 2034, and I certainly am unlikely to be around at that time, but every major anniversary there has been a commemorative history written. There was a vision achieved, there was living landscapes, and undoubtedly the 100th will have the same kind of attention given to it. And having something like the archives for whoever writes that history will be absolutely invaluable. I will conclude by mentioning that Brenda Montano, who is the staff member overseeing the archives, has done a splendid job of keeping us all organized and focused and on the right track. So in conclusion, I would urge you to support the archives and the oral history at least its present level, and better than that, at an increased level. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ned, and thanks for all you do with the archives and parking it and everything else you do for the district. Thank you so much.
We do not have any more.
We have no more comments. Any other comments on item C? Okay, were all just questions. We'll move now to item E, the authorization to purchase 5 Polaris Ranger all-electric vehicles from Polaris Sales for additions to the fleet. Member Corbett.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. I know we have a long agenda. I just wanted to point out that I very much appreciate that we're starting to execute some of these plans that we're putting into place to green our fleet and make sure we do what we can to attack global warming. And I'm just very happy to see that we're purchasing so many electric vehicles. Thank you. Very happy to see this on the agenda.
Any other questions, comments on the consent calendar? Hearing none, I will accept a motion to accept the consent calendar with the proviso that, and I don't think we need to vote on it separately, that we will amend the minutes of the November 20th meeting to reflect comments by dog advocates. And also note the comments from the historians that support the oral history, and thank you for being here. I have a motion by Member Corbett.
Second.
And a second by Member Wieskamp. Any further comment? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the consent calendar passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move to comments from our general manager, who will introduce the East Bay Regional Park District 2019 proposed operating program and project budget.
President Waspy, members of the board, this is the first public hearing for our budget for 2019. It is a balanced budget that's being presented. It is also the largest budget in the district's history. It includes 27.85 new positions district-wide, and we will go over those issues in details. Of the board priorities, we have tried to work in everything board members have set as a top priority through the 4 or 5 board workshops. Includes both the capital project program, but primarily the operating budget. This is the most staffing we have added in many, many years, and we're pleased to provide that. Some very specific items that I think are of critical note. As the board knows, we have had a tremendous year with fires in California, but our staff has been on the first line of responding to fires outside the district to benefit CAL FIRE and the tremendous need for firefighters and help statewide. The precedent that is being set by the ever-increasing fires, the loss of property and loss of lives, is something we know well. With the 1991 Oakland Hills fire. That sat for 20 years as the most expensive, most damaging fire in history of California. Unfortunately, that record has been beat for the last 4 years, again, back-to-back, year-to-year, north and south of the state. So we are making a tremendous focus on moving forward our fuels management plan, additional staffing in our fire department, a new fire chief, and we're very pleased today to make that a focus of part of the budget. It's many pieces in the budget, but this is something we think is very important. I am extremely concerned about the impact of these fires on the Bay Area with smoke, not just fires, but the smoke and the impact on staff. But it appears that this is something we're going to have to deal with. I would like us to think forward for the next budget in 2020, and are we able, with the money that we have in the budget and the economy, to double down on continued efforts to do more fuel management and provide that staffing. I think it is the critical thing, not only for this district, but for the future. I am extremely proud of the district staff and their contribution to trying to rescue people, to make people safe, and to address the fires that we had in the district. Our helicopter dropped 22 drops of fires out of our helicopter, which is a big burden on the helicopter, that constant, full throttle to lift that water. And the vast majority of those fires were put out before they reached the Park District, because we were able and we were trained and we had the staff to respond to those fires before they became a conflagration. I think there's a lesson learned there for the entire state. And I think we're not going to buy more rakes, but we're going to add more staff, and we're going to have a better, stronger effort on our fuels management. I say that just today because it's just been such a tragedy this year, and I know that we've had fire staff on all these fires, and it's just very hard. So with climate change and with our efforts in the district, we still are going to have fires, and we're going to have the need to do more. I'm extremely pleased at the efforts of the district-wide, to get through all the litigation, all the permitting, and you will hear about some of that today in the budget, for getting the permits to do this work, for getting through FEMA, for getting for grants. So I think we have a long, strenuous climb to make to get all the money out the door from the grants and to move forward on these things. But I think, unfortunately, it is the future of the district and of California. And I think we're better trained, better prepared, and better educated than many, many areas of the state of California. So I just wanted to emphasize that. I think it's an emotional time, and it's a frightening time for people and a sad time, and I just think we need to emphasize that. One other thing that the district has done that we should be aware of is that there were over 10,000 units proposed since the 90s and in the 2000s in the ridgelands with deep canyons on both sides, very similar to what was proposed, what happened in Paradise. And we stopped those by purchasing those properties and stopping those ridgetop developments across the entire East Bay. We don't talk about it a lot, but we're going to be talking about it more because we have a tool, which is we shouldn't be building in those places. They are wildland interface, and we're doing our best to do our part. And it's because of the great staff work and the teamwork and the board leadership that we've been able to do that. So I did want to just mention the two recent funding measures and just bring to your attention again the great appreciation that we all have, and thank you to staff and everybody in the board who worked so hard to get Measure FF passed. But pertinent to the budget, we don't see that money until 2020. So I just want to be clear that although it's a great victory, everybody's going, we've got more fire, more police, more staff positions protected in that measure because of everybody working hard to do that. It is a primary labor addition to our staff for Measure FF, Measure CC extension, but we won't have that money right now. The same thing is true with Prop 68. Prop 68, that money we worked so hard to get and led the charge statewide through this district and the Bay Area, that money is not going to be available for grants for quite some time. The agencies, and we'll have to see what Governor Newsom is going to do about prioritizing that in the legislature. So two big chunks of new money, both staffing for Measure FF and projects funding for restoration and habitat and preservation through Measure 68. But they're not here in this budget because they're not available yet. So I just wanted to emphasize that. Everybody's rubbing their hands together and going, let's get those going, but we're not ready yet because the finances don't come yet. I think this is a very well thought out and developed budget and trying to balance so many needs in the district. And I'm very proud of what you'll be hearing today from the staff. And we have a great team presenting today and a lot of work through the finance department and Chair Corbett. And so we're here. We're ready to go dig through this today. This is your draft. It is not the final budget. It's the first public hearing. So we're prepared as we go along to answer your questions and then open that up to the public as part of the public hearing on the budget. So thank you very much. And thank you to the staff and the very talented staff in this room.
Thank you. Deborah.
Good evening. I'm Deborah Auker, the Assistant General Manager of Finance and Management Services and the Chief Financial Officer for the district. And I'm going to walk you through your budget book and introduce the 2019 proposed budget for the calendar year of January through December of 2019. As our General Manager mentioned, we have proposed budget highlights. Oh, I have to turn it on. I must turn on the clicker. All right. So our general manager highlighted some of the things that are in this budget: preserving land, protecting against wildfires, enhancing safety in parks and on trails, improving public access, providing environmental programs, restoring natural areas. Those are just some of the highlights. And I'm going to walk you through today and have a little bit of an interactive process. So you're welcome to answer questions as I go. I may invite some of our other assistant general managers up to respond, but I'll first walk you through the budget process, talk about our performance plan and our performance goals. Then we'll talk about the district-wide budget, the high-level budget overview, and then I'm actually going to drill down into each division, which I haven't done in the previous meetings. So we'll be here for a while. So our budget process does start, we have budget workshops in the spring, and we have different priorities and interests from board members that we're always considering as we're putting together our budget. We're developing our performance plan, which are included in the general manager's message, the different indicators and objectives. We are developing our revenue projections starting in July and August, and putting together budget requests at the division level. And so we have budget requests coming in kind of from the bottom up of the organization and from the top down. And then there's a lengthy process for reviewing budget requests. And once we get through that, we create this proposed draft budget that you have before you. We've also presented the budget to the Finance Committee twice. In October, we bring very preliminary general fund information, and then we were back in November to present. Let's see, it was November 28th. We presented the full draft proposed budget. We went to the Park Advisory Committee on November 26th, and we had 3 staff information budget meetings. So we had one here and in 2 other locations within the district, and we had gave staff the opportunity to come during the workday and get a budget update. Here we are today at our first public hearing. This is just an introduction, and you'll take no action tonight. And we will come back in 2 weeks and refine any questions and ask the board to adopt the budget at that time on December 18th. So that's our general process. As I mentioned, we start the budget with looking at the mission statement of the district and looking to the master plan. In the master plan, we have different items that we've identified as our district-wide performance goals that we're driving as we're using as drivers to put together our different objectives. And so I'm just going to walk us through how we link our budget to these master plan goals. And so 8 of them have been identified in the budget. And the first one we're going to talk about is improve access to public parklands and outreach to underrepresented parks. These are just a few of the items within the general manager's message and the performance plan. There's, 3 times as many objectives listed. These are just a few to highlight, so you're welcome to ask questions on any of them. As you know, we're always trying to continue extending the San Francisco Bay Trail. This year we were able to complete the Pinole Shores to Bayfront Park segment. Next year we're going to be focusing on the San Francisco Bay Trail extension from Hercules to Lone Tree Point and Rodeo. We are continuing to examine our Adventure Crew pilot program, which is an outreach program to disadvantaged communities, outdoor education program. We're continuing to update our exhibits, focusing on 3 visitor centers to include multiple languages and ADA compliance. And we're always partnering with the Regional Parks Foundation to continue programs for underrepresented residents. Attract and retain a workforce of excellence. We are completing a classification and compensation study for district staff. There is our most recent negotiations, we allocated $1 million towards that study, and that is included in this budget. We are continuing to hire and train employees that are representative of the community. We have adequate funding for staffing new parks before they open. We call that the pipeline, and so there's about 8 how many positions are in here? Over 8 FTEs for the opening of new parks or trails. And we're providing a lot of training in ecological and stewardship topics, especially related to our routine maintenance program. As the general manager mentioned, we've been able this year to secure many permits that we've been seeking for years, and our routine maintenance permit is one of them. So getting out there, we're doing a ton of work this year. We will be continuing that for the 5 years of the permit. And then always continuing to seek improvements to our staff facilities and upgrade service yards. Our next item, balance environmental considerations with outdoor recreation opportunities. We were successful in obtaining a $5 million state grant for Del Val, and as part of the state budget. So we'll be developing a plan for infrastructure improvements at Del Val Regional Park. Also, the budget includes $250,000 for assessing infrastructure needs at Anthony Chabot Regional Park, one of our oldest campgrounds in the district. We're going to begin our work on the major creek restoration project on the McCosker property at Sibley, which is over 3,000 cubic feet creek restoration. Continuing restroom conversions to either vault or flush toilets, including Black Diamond, Coyote Hills, and others. And we're anxiously waiting the opening of the Dunbarton Quarry Campground. And we're hoping to prepare for that opening by including some startup costs in this budget. We don't believe that it will open until the spring of 2020, but we're going to get ready for that. Developing long-term infrastructure plans for maintenance and continuing work on many land use plans, including Las Trampas, Black Diamond, Concord Hills, Miller Knox, and Coyote Hills, to name a few. This budget also includes adding Deer Valley to the list. Restore, preserve, protect, and maintain scenic, natural, and cultural resources, a big topic this afternoon. And so we are continuing our fuels management program, our wildfire hazard fuels reduction program in the hills and throughout the district. In this budget, we've included a 5-person fuels reduction crew. We're going to fund that crew with FEMA money, and the matching funds are some general fund monies that are set aside every year by the district, along with Measure CC money, and it will continue with Measure FF money in the future. Completing the Lake Temescal dredging feasibility and really working to keep our lakes healthy. There's also funding for Lake Anza aeration. That project is underway right now. And really examining the district's integrated pest management practices related to techniques for managing invasive plants, aquatic bacteria, and restoring native habitat. So we'll be examining those practices, and there's some funding in the budget for that. Foster a safe visitor experience, seeking funding for wildfire mitigation. CAL FIRE has received a lot of grants that they're willing to pass on to agencies that can utilize them. As I mentioned, utilizing the almost $7 million that we've already secured in FEMA and seeking additional funds in that area. In last year's budget, we did fund the replacement of one of our helicopters, and we're going to continue evaluating that equipment to figure out what is the best use for that replacement. Providing emergency operations training for Park District employees, continuing trail safety education programs, and continuing our swimming lesson program. Enhancing visitors' relationship to nature. That includes a new program of incorporating performing arts into special events, continuing our naturalist programs, using the pop-up interpretive programs, and our mobile education centers. Providing information and hosting events for the 85th anniversary of this Park District and other events. And also, our operations division is collaborating with the University of California, Berkeley, and the County Education Office in putting together curriculums for the next generation science standards, which will assist the teachers in those programs. I'm always thankful that we have strong financial and fiscal policies here, always ensuring the fiscal health of the district. So leveraging our funding, our grant funding, seeking grants, partnering with other agencies, such as the East Contra Costa Habitat Conservancy. And then, as the general manager mentioned, seeking Prop 68 state bond money, San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority funding, and developing a 5-year capital improvement program, which is a little bit different than the projects budget that we have before you, a little more long-term in nature. Plan for climate change resiliency, including several projects that we have going on right now. Albany Beach Restoration Project, Bay Point Restoration Project, installing rain catchment systems, which we've already been doing throughout the district, advancing interests in the allocation of greenhouse gas reduction fund revenue, and feasibility plan for a pilot demonstration project to do the best practices for maintenance and operations in our parks. So those are some of the highlights in our performance plan that we have. So now, unless you have any questions on that section, I'm going to drill down into some of the numbers and go over the district-wide highlights. We have a balanced budget of $247 million, and that includes transfers, expenditures, and the use of fund balance of all funds. District-wide. Our resources budget is, as I mentioned, $247 million. It's up 12.2% from last year, which was $220 million. Our revenue sources are made up of property taxes and lighting and landscaping district assessments, Measure CC, and other special revenues of $177 million. Charges for services are made up of parking fees, facility rental fees, some public safety services that we provide to other agencies. We have concessionaires that provide services for us, and our swimming program make up the majority of our charges for services of almost $23 million. Our property usage and agreements includes our grazing program. We have some leases for communication sites, and then also the tipping fees that are required at Dumbarton Quarry are included in that category. Interest revenue is up this year, and also the funding from the Regional Park Foundation is increased this year. And our transfers are where we move money around from different fund types, such as paying debt service or funding our infrastructure fund and other internal service programs. So that is our resources. Here's another way of looking at it. You can see the magnitude of our taxes and assessments, which is 85% of our total budget. Property taxes are $143 million. Our general property taxes are. That's an increase of 8.6% from last year. It's based on the assessed valuation of all of the taxable properties throughout the 2 counties. Our total assessments include, as I mentioned, the landscape and lighting districts. Also, our debt levy is included in this slice. So we have our WW bond authorization that was passed by the voters. And so every year we go to the voters and we ask them to contribute additional money for the debt service on those bonds so we can have capital improvements in our parks. Charges for services is 11%. That is about the same as last year. On the revenue side, investment earnings, as I mentioned, has gone up. We were a little bit stagnant in our investment earnings since the market hadn't changed. Now that the market has changed, we've increased our budget up to $3.7 million on the interest side. Property usage is just down slightly, mainly because our tipping fees are starting to level off. The quarry is beginning to fill up, and so we put our budget to what we're seeing out there. So that is our revenue picture. I will say, though, that although this growth in property tax looks great, we do see looking forward that we're a little overdue for a recession, and so we are planning for assessed valuation to slow down and possibly be reduced. The economists say that a recession can come as early as late 2019 to 2020, and it will take a while for property values to feel that, but we are planning that will come, and we've adjusted our budget for those that type of planning. So on the expenditure side, we have appropriations of about $230 million district-wide. $175 million are considered operating. $13 million are grants and agreements. The majority of that is our WW local grant program that we're still contributing funds to other agencies within the 2 counties. I mentioned our debt service on the WW bonds, about $30 million. That's increased because we've issued new bonds in 2017. So we have, although we've paid off older bonds, so we have $30 million there, and capital outlay is about the same. When you add your transfers of $38 million to that, you come up with the balanced budget and the use of funds. So here on the expenditure side, you can see that personnel costs, we're a service-driven agency, are the majority of our appropriations in this budget. About 56% is for personnel, $128 million. That's an increase of 7% from the prior year budget. Just over half of that is for wages, and about 43% of that slice goes towards budgeted benefits. It does, as I mentioned, include the $1 million for the classification study, and it also includes funding our pension trust. So we created a pension trust for the long-term planning for employee pensions, and we contributed $2 million to that trust. So as rates increase in the future, we can draw down on that trust and keep our overall cost a little bit manageable. Supplies and services are $40.8 million. That's just up 2.6% from the prior year. I talked about the local grant program is the interagency agreements. That was budgeted at $25 million last year and only $13 million this year, so you can see a decrease in that, but that's as planned. Capital outlay is about the same at $10.4 million, and debt service is increased significantly because of the issuance of the new bonds. So here we have our total appropriations, our transfers out, and our use of fund balance. We're drawing down on our project funds. We utilize the bond proceeds for capital projects, and we utilize the funding for the tax levy for debt service. And so that's the use of fund balance of almost $21 million to come up with our balanced budget of $247 million to agree to our revenues. So that's the big picture district-wide numbers. Now I'm going to go over staffing a little bit. In this budget, we were fortunate to be, first I'm going to talk about the general fund. So the general fund is the largest fund of the district. We have several different fund types in governmental accounting, and this really is the operating fund of the district. So the majority of costs are in here. In your budget, we break down the general fund, and we also break down all the special revenue funds, internal service funds, permanent funds. But here is the largest fund of the district is about $159 million in expenditures and transfers in total. Now staffing. So this budget, although we were being conservative as we put this budget together, we were able to add 27.87 additional full-time equivalents to the base budget. That is including about 26 new positions that I'll go over in detail, and 4 upgrades to positions. That's kind of getting rid of the old position and upgrading it to something new, like taking a park ranger and changing it to a park craft specialist, and about 0.73 of adding hours to positions that already exist. 0.75 of those are limited term. That means we're drawing down on special funds that aren't going to be there forever. And within that 27.87, we've included almost 9 FTEs for pipeline positions. So that's putting people out in the parks to serve for growth. For a total of 847 authorized FTEs or full-time equivalents in our budget. So this is how it breaks down. Our additions are 5 unrepresented positions and almost 23 represented FTEs. Of those represented 23 FTEs, we have the majority of them are all serving in the field, with 7% police field positions, 26% fire field positions, and then 19% is staff that is supporting those field positions. So to see the breakdown of the new positions by division, and I will go over this in a little bit more detail when we talk about each division later in the budget presentation. But you can see that the operations staff, which are really all in the field, and public safety staff were the highlights in this budget. We have 1 in public affairs, 1 stewardship position in ASD, executive and legislative got 3 positions, and finance and management services got 1.25. So you can see the history. This is going back about 10 years, and you can see that we've been fortunate to be able to add staff while this economy is growing. You can see previously where we had to kind of hold off on adding new staff during the recession. But also we added this line, which is showing the growth in acreage. So it is interesting. This park district continues to grow. We're not like other governmental agencies because we're continuing to acquire new lands, develop and provide new services. And so you can see that we're adding staff to go along with that. So that kind of concludes my staffing questions. Yes. Question.
I really appreciate this chart.
Thank you for recommending
because it's having seen us add quite a few people in 2008 before the recession and then scramble to make sure we didn't have to do furloughs or dismissals. To see us looking at adding this many is a little disconcerting. So I think for us to see that combination with the acreage is very helpful to me. Then in looking at page 83, 84, 85, where you describe the new positions and changes, I understand that the new fire crew is going to be funded by FEMA and CC or FF.
That is correct.
And I guess my question is, so what happens when we run out of FEMA funds? I know happily we've passed FF, and so we will have ongoing revenues from that source. So can you answer that question?
I will do my best. So we have, there is a great need for this work in the Park District, and we don't see that work really slowing down. We have been successful in securing these grants from FEMA, which we haven't really been able to tap into until this year, and we do hope to continue to secure additional federal funding and state funding in this area. But, and I think in other times, we would have probably just added a position a year to get to where we thought we needed to be. But the urgency and the severity of the work that needs to be done, we said, let's put it all in here, and we will be able to absorb this through time, utilizing all of this grant funding, utilizing, we have a practice. I believe former Director John Sutter recommended we grow the contribution to this program from general funds. There's $900,000 in this budget transferring over to this program in addition to the grant funds. So it will be something that the board will have to identify as an ongoing priority if the grant funding does change in any way.
And Director Lane, I think from a financial standpoint, there is additional money that we already have been told we're going to receive on grants, and that's not FEMA, but State of California. The governor's last year's budget put in $1 billion of fuels funding. We expect to get some of that. There's also proposals for additional crews by California Conservation Corps. While that's not cash, it adds to getting the work done. I think that the district has done a good job of continuing to add to the base budget on our own general fund funding, but we're going to be able to leverage that now with, we've already got $8 million. I think we're going to see more FEMA funds that are in the hopper. We're also going to see more state funds. So I think what we're really trying to do is with the district's investment in the base budget of growing the base budget for our own fuels management, it's allowing us to leverage even more dollars. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to utilize all the federal dollars because there's some things they won't cover. They're not covering our overhead. They're not covering our administration. They're covering the work in the field. So I'm confident that the grant side of this will grow. And if we want that money, we need to respond to it. And I think if you continue to, when you can, to put more into the base budget every year for our own general fund funding for staff, I think we'll be able to leverage those funds far into the future.
And I also think the idea is that there's a lot of fuels reduction work that needs to be done, but there's also trail maintenance and other maintenance work that these crews could be utilized for to give them a break in the really tough work that is before them. So,
Member Rosario, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just going back to the chart, I think it would be interesting to, in addition to that blue line showing acreage, is the visitation numbers.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just to give us a perspective, because I think visitation is something that needs to be related to not just. I mean, our employees shouldn't be just tied to how much land we have, but how many visitors are we serving. So I think that's. be interesting to see that.
Director
included.
Rosario, I think it's a great idea. We don't have annual visitation overall. We did a major study to look at I can't remember the date, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that showed there's about 25 million annual visits, but we don't do that annually. If we want to fund a study like that, we'd have to have somebody doing those counts in every park. 73 parks would be hard to do. It's something we'd love to do, and we have looked at other ways that universities have worked on those counts, and we're very open to that. It would be very helpful because I'm confident the numbers are actually higher, and I absolutely agree that the impact on the existing parks, whether you add acres or not, more people, more litter, more cleanup, more work. So I absolutely agree with that.
And Director Lane, I appreciate you talking about not growing too much. So with our budget, our balanced budget policies, our budget principles, our budget development practices, we do have a way of trying to make sure that we're not adding to the base of our budget, which is the ongoing costs. We have a practice of doing a 50-50 growth of the base ongoing budget and growth of one time or spending of one time. And this year we actually changed it to 45% growth in the ongoing base, just to look forward for that. So we are looking to make sure that we are prepared for a recession, and having our fund balance policy in place and things like that are helpful. All right, so now I'm going to bring us to section C of our budget book, which really drills down into each division. And so we take those performance goals and the budgets and we show them by individual division. And I will do my best to highlight a few things without dragging this on too long. So our executive and legislative division includes the board of directors budget, the general manager, deputy general manager, our legislative team, our clerk of the board, and human resources. And so that's 33 full-time equivalents. In this budget, you have one new position in the general manager's office and 2 new human resource analysts. The performance goals in this division include many human resources and employee-focused goals, and many are related to tracking legislative actions. So here is the budget of almost $9 million in executive and legislative. Included in the new requests, right? We start with our regular level of service in our budget, but within our new request in this budget, we have $50,000 for implementing dog policies. I mentioned the $250,000 for assessing Anthony Chabot infrastructure, and also we set aside money for a new well at Coyote Hills that is not working. Our Acquisition, Stewardship, and Development Division is a total of 80 FTEs. That includes design and construction, environmental programs, land acquisition, planning and GIS, stewardship, and trails development. Included in this budget, we have one new stewardship position, a rangeland specialist. Last year, there was 1.25 FTEs added to stewardship. So we've been making sure that that department has what they need. Some of the indicators that they're tracking in this division are acres of land acquired, miles of trail, lands restored. Some of the objectives in their work plan include the many land use plans, work at Concord Hills, Encinal Beach, Hayward Marsh. Those are a few in addition to the ones we already talked about. On the money side here, their operating budget increased by about 4.8% from last year. The capital funding increased by $7 million, which we've kind of set aside in the budget, $7 million of WW money for possible land acquisitions throughout the year. Also, I mentioned it includes the Deer Valley Land Use Plan, work at Tilden for brook crossings, Jewel Lake feasibility study, and our integrated pest management assessment. There's some funding in there to go through that process. There's also biomonitoring money in there now that we've received our different permits. We're doing a lot more biomonitoring for the fuels reduction work and for our regular maintenance work. Funding for our Mountain Lion project, and additional lab services for water quality testing. Finance and Management Services Division, 48.25 FTEs. This budget includes 1 new systems analyst in information services and 0.25 in finance for cross-training. We have indicators that are tracking customer service, adherence to fiscal policies and best practices. Some of our performance objectives include workspace planning for this administration building, developing maintenance work plans using our asset management data, and long-term planning related to unfunded liabilities, and updating different policies such as an investment policy that will include environmental, social, and governance components, and environmentally preferred purchasing. So included in this budget, as I mentioned, the grants department looks a little bit skewed when you look at the variance from last year because it was $25 million set aside for local grants last year. It's $13 million this year, but otherwise there's not too much growth within the department. The budget includes $2 million in addition to the regular funding for the major infrastructure restoration and replacement plan. So that's one of the board priorities, to set aside money into our long-term investment of infrastructure replacement. So we've set aside $2 million here. We have money towards information technology and a little bit for our generator replacement. Our legal division includes our risk management department, a total of 8 full-time equivalents. They're providing safety training and providing support for the land acquisition department, planning department, and human resources, just to name a few. The risk management department includes our general liability, risk management, and workers' compensation. Well, there's safety, there it is. Our, whoops, hold on. There we go, the numbers. So this budget includes an increase for legal services of $200,000 and increased in our insurance premiums. It also includes in this budget is setting $1 million aside for the gun club cleanup, which we've been doing every year as we work on a plan for that. Our operations division, our largest, 475 almost FTEs. That is made up of park operations, interpretive and recreation services, maintenance and skilled trades, and business services. They have an increase in park operations of over 7.5 FTEs, a slight reduction in interp and rec. That's because there were some one-time programs, but we did add 1.75 FTEs to offset those one-time grants and special programs. And we've also increased the MAST staff to add a heavy equipment operator for a total of 9.96 new FTEs added. Their performance and goals include tracking of different programs and volunteer hours. Their objectives include restroom conversions, an interim opening at Gateway, implementing new software for volunteers and for major maintenance, and a solid waste management plan are just to name a few. Their budget includes, I don't think I mentioned before, a trail maintenance crew. So in addition to the fuels reduction crew, we have a trails maintenance crew that we are partnering with the Student Conservation Association. They're going to work here for 10 months. So we have about $200,000 in the budget for the funding of that crew and the equipment that's necessary. We also have $300,000 for fleet replacements, which is in addition to our normal fleet replacement program. $352,000 for uniforms. Our most recent employee agreement had some terms in there to upgrade our uniforms. We have $150,000 to switch out some of our waste receptacles to the 3-stream animal-proof receptacles. We have startup costs for Dunbarton Quarry Campground, some funding for oral histories that was mentioned earlier today, and performing arts, continuing our Adventure Crew pilot program, $1 million for paving, which is in addition to our regular program, and also other major maintenance expenditures. We're getting close, only 2 more. Public affairs, we're adding 1 management position in public affairs. Their objectives are tracking events, attendees to programs, and they're providing different special events, continuing multicultural wellness walks, utilizing funding from the Regional Park Foundation, and completing an archival needs assessment is included as one of the goals in this budget. We do have some special funding for our big special events this year. We are hosting the Special Parks District Forum, so we have a budget in there to accommodate that. And we will have several events honoring our 85th anniversary, so we have budget in there. Social media engagement and the equipment that's necessary to continue with our creative design and environmental graphics programming. Their overall budget is increased by just over 4%. Public safety. Here we are showing some growth in our full-time equivalent staffing. We talked about the 5-member fire crew. We also have an additional fuels reduction coordinator that will focus on contracting for fuels reduction, and an admin analyst in the fire department. We've included 1.66 full-time equivalent police officers, which I think they might have some of those other parts so that they can get 2 police officers, or we'll accumulate that. Sworn police officers, and 2 FTEs in the property and evidence area. Their performance objectives include, as we've talked about a lot, fuels reduction. Water safety programs is a big part of our aquatics budget, completing our evaluation of the needs for the air support unit, and improving the handling and processing of our evidence and property unit. Our public safety budget is just a little lower than the prior year when you look at the totals overall, and that's because we budgeted quite a big chunk for the helicopter last year. So overall, there is growth in that department. Some of the new budget requests included in these budgets are communications and radios, looking at our microwave transmission system of how we communicate throughout all the park district, officer safety equipment, vehicles and equipment for the fire crew and new police officers, and lab fees and technology costs. So that concludes my review of all of the divisions. And now I just have a couple more slides to talk about the programs and project budget, which we've redone a little bit this year for you. So in the past, we just had a list of all of our projects and programs listed by parks. And in this budget, we've tried to group some of those similar activities together into 10 programs. So that leaves us with just over 100 that we've deemed to be capital projects, over 100,000 in dollar amount, something that would be capitalized in a special location. And for each of those capital projects, we've given it its own page, a photograph, additional information from the prior year, including status, and so that's part of the projects. And in the back of the book, we have 10 programs that are grouping like programs together, such as resource management and others. And so here's just a slide showing you out of the projects, out of the 111 projects, the majority are public access focused, 22% for resource protection, 20% for infrastructure improvements, 8% for land acquisition. On the program side, we have a variety. These are the 10 different programs that we established, and these are broken up by dollar amount in the budget of what's been funded. At this level of our budget development in this area, these are really just programs where there is a need to track special funding, or we've set aside special budgets in these programs. It does not mean it's all inclusive of everything that is our wild our wildlife protection budgets. There's many things in our operating budget that are covering those types of program costs as well. So overall, here's the appropriations that are included in our programs and project budget. They're in the front of the budget also listed. And then here's just an example of one of the capital projects that we've completed this year at Wildcat Canyon Regional Park. We put in a new restroom with ADA access, a drinking fountain. We utilized Measure CC money and our infrastructure money to put that in. And then this is an example of a program, our Wildfire Hazard Reduction Program, which is really putting all of the funding on one page for a total budget of $21.8 million, which wasn't, you weren't able to see that in the prior way that we put the budget together. So it shows all the different funding sources from FEMA, General Fund, Forest Service, all different sources. And so that is concluding my report. We're here today to open our first public hearing. We'll be back December 18th to request the adoption of the budget and answer any questions. So we're happy to answer any questions and have our public hearing.
Help me, Council. Do we open up the public hearing right now and ask for questions, or get questions from the board and then open the?
You should get questions from the board and then open up the public hearing.
Okay, let's do that. Any questions, comments from the board? Yeah. Member Rosario.
I was just looking at the operations division. I just noticed, couldn't help but notice, but in the supplies for the majority of the different units, they've cut supplies with the exception of one unit, I think, and that was Delta. Is that because of an austerity program, or is that something reflecting expenditures in 2018?
So the way we do our budget is we didn't cut any supplies, but there was likely one-time budgets in the prior year that just didn't get continued. And so I don't know if there's anything specific. Oh, here's Jim. He's going to talk about that.
Jim O'Connor, Assistant General Manager of Operations. We also did an adjustment in utilities this year, and so we moved some money from supplies into services and moved money around between units because we've been shorting on utilities costs going up, rates have been going up, volumes have been going up because of increased visitation. So we did some of that movement of budgets also.
Okay. Don't have to do it now, but could someone explain to me how our solar array at Shadow Cliffs is affecting our current utility bills throughout the Park District?
Well, we'd be happy to give you the details on that, but generally it's covering about 80 to 90% of all of our utility electric bills. And then that goes into the long-term payoff. Those savings are going to long-term payoff for that capital improvement. So eventually we will pay off what it cost, which was 12 million?
8 million.
About 12 million, 8 to 12 million, I can't remember exactly. And when that's paid off, that's net savings because we no longer have that bill. So it is a huge reduction in our annual cost, but it cost us to build the array. Exactly the same thing we did on the roof here is that we built this did a great job of the headquarters, but we had to put out the money to build it. Eventually that gets paid off and we repaid ourselves and then it's a net gain. Even though over time all panels go down in quality of generation. But we can give you the exact how that works. A law was passed in the state of California that allows us to aggregate all of our bills, so we're not one park paying a separate bill to PG&E and another park. So that's how we were able to get the credit district-wide, that's how it was in the past, is that everybody in the field got a PG&E bill, we got one here, but because the legislature, certainly when Director Corbett was there, worked on a way that you could encourage people to do more solar because if they have 10 of these, they're not going to make any real savings off of one little solar array. So we were able to aggregate all of our electrical onto that panel. It's a credit through PG&E, basically.
I'd
And as the general manager mentioned, the savings is not reflected in here. We're still in the payback period, but we are absolutely tracking that information.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Member Wieskamp.
I have solar, and for the last 2 years, I've received a check because it did not do what they guaranteed it would do. Do we have any such guarantee or not?
We do have a performance guarantee, and we work with our consultant to evaluate that. I think since we're only really in the very end of the first full year.
Well, mine is a tiny little one in comparison.
But we are
let me tell you.
absolutely, we're
And I know
working
a
on that
couple
as
of
well.
panels need replacing, but it just suddenly dawned on me that we did, I thought, have a performance
We do have a guarantee.
I love the solar. The people who go to Shadow Cliffs love it for other reasons than the energy. But I think people really do appreciate that we did a project in a location that does not take away from the view. No objections from neighbors. Anybody I've talked to said what a smart thing the district did. But we took advantage at a time when it made a lot of sense. So.
And Director Wieskamp, it actually reduces the heat source on the pavement and the ground because you're covering shade, not just on cars, but you're covering shade on the ground, and it gets very hot, as you know, out there.
I guarantee you,
So
if I'm
that's a
out there on a
benefit.
hot day, I love to park there.
So we did, and going back to Director Rosario's question, we did actually propose a larger solar panel array out there, and basically PG&E said we would be basically generating electricity with no benefit. That's something the board can consider, but from the standpoint of the investment, it wasn't a great investment. So they actually eliminated a few rows of panels we were going to do because they said you're not going to get, based on your bills and what you have in the district, you're not going to get 100%, even if you add more. This is a cap. So that's one of the things that utilities do. They try not to give you 100% of that savings.
Picking on PG&E. Deborah, do you need a glass of water?
I am fine.
Okay.
I am great. Thank you.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from board members? I have one, Deborah, and I just looked at this. The fuels reduction coordinator, the fire crew foreman, and the fire crew members, are they members of the fire department? Are they lieutenants, captains, and
They will, I don't
Indians?
believe they are lieutenants or captains, but these are members of the fire department.
I bet there's somebody who can help you.
Good evening, Fire Chief Eileen Tiley. The question was the fuels reduction coordinator. They all have specific roles within the fire department, so they are all members of the fire department with different functions.
would a fuels reduction coordinator be a lieutenant or firefighter two?
No, they'd be a fuels reduction coordinator.
Oh, okay.
They're not sworn. They are able to be on-call firefighters if they want to be, but they're not active members. They're a member of the fire department, but they're not active firefighters, unless they're an OCF.
Okay, thank you. Member Zario.
So are they affiliated with either POA or ASME?
Those will be AFSCME positions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chief Kiley's first budget question. Pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
All right, well, if there are no further questions from the board, I'll open up the public hearing. Are there any comments, questions from the public on the 2019 proposed budget?
Yes, President Waspy, we have one speaker card from Ms. Ruth Orta.
Yes. First off, I would like to ask, does the
Ruth, will
Ohlone
you
gathering...
pull the mic down for, yeah, we want to hear you.
You
Thank
mean you can't hear my loud voice? And I have to tippy-toe to reach this thing. Is the Ohlone gathering put in the budget? Or that's just, if we have the money, we do it?
No, I'll direct them at staff, but I think we.
This is
budget
my
that every
first
year.
budget hearing here.
The one at Coyote Hills, the Coyote Hills Day.
After 25 years,
We'll get an answer
Jim
from
moved,
Mr.
I couldn't
O'Connor.
find him. There he is. So staff
you
will
ex-
answer that question. Thank you, Ruth.
Jim O'Connor again. Yes, Coyote, the Ohlone Gathering is part of the base budget, so it's not
Okay.
held out as a separate
Okay.
item or a new item.
And also, another question, the village sites at Coyote Hills, is that under the maintenance too of, if anything, sometimes the stuff rots and falls, especially around the fence. Is that covered under all the cultural stuff, that we have?
I think it would be routine maintenance, but I will defer to
Yeah.
Assistant General Manager O'Connor, right behind you again. He'll answer that question.
We'll just meet after the meeting here. Again, that would be part of our base budget, part of our maintenance funds, and sometimes if it's a large enough project, we put it in as a budget request in a certain budget year, but that's
Okay.
normally part of base budget.
Okay. Well, that's it, and the 85th birthday of the park next year will be my 85th birthday on this earth. So when it's 100 years old, I hope I'm here.
Me too.
Thank you very much for your comments, and thank you for your work on the gathering of the Ohlone peoples. Madam Clerk, there was just one comment?
Yes, President Wasby.
Okay, well, at that point, I will close the public hearing unless there are any further comments from anyone? Board staff, public?
I'll make one comment.
Oh, we do have some.
Go ahead.
Do
Fill
we
out a
have
card
somebody
after.
else?
Go ahead, come on
Get
up.
them
Tell us
first.
your name and where you live and where you work, and we'll get a speaker card later.
Theo Fatanides. I live in Berkeley, and I work here in the district. Thank you so much. I was wondering, it's a broader question, but there's the pipeline, which addresses one issue of increasing parks that we're opening, and mostly, I think they're in the land bank, the new land, I think. And then we have increasing staffing needs, as I see it, for the increasing demand on our parks. And I'm just wondering what the plan is for that in light of the necessity for fiscal conservatism. It just seems like a really big open question that probably can't be addressed year by year. But it seemed like a big gap in the budget. And I wasn't sure if there's a plan for that.
Go ahead.
Hey, Jim O'Connor again. The challenge every year is how do we balance being fiscally sound and also managing our capacity growth that's happened both in visitation and land. So the pipeline takes care of the land, like Theo mentioned. And capacity side, what we've been trying to do is a couple of strategies. One we call infill, which is basically converting 9-month positions. We're trying to remove all the 9-month positions, convert them to 12-month positions. So that extends some of the capacity in the off-season for parks where they can do some project work and catch up. We're also doing some position upgrades. For instance, we're upgrading one of the building aid positions in facilities up to a park craft specialist, which will help with some of the more technical maintenance aspects of managing our reservable facilities. So those are a couple of techniques. We're also we're looking at adding new positions, potentially working with the union to talk about some trainee positions that we're going to add in. So those are kind of some of the strategies. And then every year I try to, a bit at a time, I add in some wholly new FTEs and portions of FTEs to different parks. I kind of keep a running list from budget submittals from the various park supervisors, and I try to hit them each year a little bit at a time. And so we try to add in some capacity that way.
Member Corbett.
And we will have additional FTEs once FF kicks in 2020 as well?
That is true.
Yeah, so that will be part of the growth.
And that is not pipeline, that is existing parks, I believe almost 100%, mainly field and public safety.
And you can see we are, besides just operations, we're balancing the needs throughout the district. So when I showed you the growth in FTEs, you can see that the majority of them are serving the field in this budget.
Just the other comment, this is not staff positions. I mean, the real focus of everybody's effort was to get those new staff positions through FF. Not only save the ones we have that we would have lost, but add new ones. And so that is a great success of everybody that worked hard on that. I also just want to mention that a big part of the budget presentation were improvements to existing facilities. If you replace a bathroom with a lockable door that's in really good shape, you're not maintaining it as much. So it's not new positions, but for those of us who've been around the district, I've been here for 43 years, the amount of investment in courtyards, facilities, so we have better places to work and better facilities and equipment has really increased dramatically over the years. That's why we're doing the studies on replacement of buildings, because the older the building, the more you have to do replacement of plumbing and electrical and water where we work. So we're trying to do a lot there too. And that's one-time capital, so it's not base budget add. It's an investment in that building, that facility, that office, that plumbing, that pipeline. So I think that's a really important thing that some agencies have fallen way back on, and we've tried to keep up with.
All right, now we'll move to board comments. Member Wieskamp.
I want to express my admiration for the Finance Department. I mean, I think you lay it out so nicely. Obviously, all of the staff who put their input in putting together this whole scenario. I can't say it's fun to read the budget. You wouldn't believe me if I said it. But I think Book 2 was very helpful. I think you're grouping, you're trying to help us understand areas. Really was helpful for me, and hopefully for anybody else who's looking at the budget, whether it's the first time or not. And I appreciate the fact that I knew you were looking at small items that are significant. I mean, how many people think about a well at Coyote Hills as being significant? Well, if you want to talk about organic farming there, it's significant. I want us to show a lot of other agencies that we really care a lot about fire prevention, and I think we're doing that. And I would hope that we can work with some other agencies on how we can work with them, because this affects the whole state. Every time we do something together, I think we do a much better job. And I think you've shown great leadership, and I really appreciate that. Everybody involved, thanks for all you put in. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and I'd like to acknowledge Pam Bernor and Deborah Spalding and Anna Alvarez for sure. Yes, Mona Palacio. Thank you.
Noted. Member Lane.
Well, I don't know. I find the budget pretty interesting, but it does demolish your weekend after Thanksgiving, I will say. And, you know, in reading this and both volumes, I think we're doing a better job every year. So I want to congratulate you on that and say that, you know, now I'm getting used to performance objectives and the measures. It's very helpful for me to go through the divisions and see what has been accomplished or is still going for the next year. When it comes to operations, there don't seem to be quite as many as I would expect. And so, you know, I think you need to talk further to get yourself a little longer list there.
Oh, my goodness. You're adding to the assignment.
No, well, you know, I'm just looking at it, and I will say that finance seems to know exactly how to do this, but being able to go and see what they've achieved in this past year, based on the ones from the year before, is very helpful for me. And I had my list of questions, and I really appreciate getting so many answers back, and so I don't have to bring most of those up. I do want to say that I'm looking forward to having some funds there for the northern Las Trampas access, and I think we are probably overdue in putting somebody into that Valley Hill residence, because in my experience, if we leave a residence empty for too long, then you have a whole lot more that you have to do to it. So I'd like to see some activity in that area. I also want to thank you for the efforts you're going to do with Sudden Oak death and the funds that are in the budget for that. It's, when I went to the stewardship seminar, hearing about the devastating Sudden Oak death, not only on the western side, but beginning to go into the valley side, was a real eye-opener for me, and I think we need to be addressing that. So, it's pretty important for me. And then I do hope that we can address the ADA access to Lake Anza. I mentioned that in my comments, and I know that you have to figure out where you're going to spend that $500,000, but I think with so many people using that lake, that it would be important to make it accessible in a way that it is not now. And I would just want to second Ann in how well the budget read and how much you can learn if you get to the right pages. So thank you so much for your work.
Any other board member comments? Member Corbett.
I just want to express my appreciation being the finance chair this year. The finance department has been available at all times and answered all my questions, and I don't have many tonight because I asked them all last week when we had finance committee. But I just want to appreciate, thank you and appreciate your responsiveness. I particularly appreciate these documents, especially the programs document that groups everything by park and program. I think it allows for a lot more transparency. Not that we're not transparent, but it gives a chance for people to easily find what they're looking for, because typically people will look for things by program or park. So I very much appreciate that. I also, I'm new here, but I'm excited because this is the first year I've seen so many new FTEs, which I think is historic, and I appreciate that. Obviously, all of the work we do and the maintenance and operations of our parks are extremely important. And I especially appreciate also our focus on responding to climate change, our stewardship work, which is very important. Overall, I think it looks like a pretty good budget this year. Also, I'll just say it again, thankful to everybody. I know it's not in this budget, but thankful to everybody who worked on FF. That gives us the chance to plan in a couple of years towards more improvements and increases and responses to our needs. So, I think it looks very good, and I don't have any more questions for you, Deborah. And thank you to your entire office and staff who's been very available as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Zara.
I too wanted to thank everyone in the finance department, Deborah, your department and yourself, and all your staff there are just incredible. This is, I've said this before, is these budgets are getting easier and easier to read, and it's to your credit and the staff's credit for being so flexible and being really, innovative in how do you present the budget. And also to that is, I just wanted to say for future discussions, I really would like to see a tracking visitation on that chart. I think it's a valuable tool, and that leads to what Theo Fitaninis brought up about we should really be talking or looking at what our minimal staffing standards are. In my opinion, I think we're a little weak on that. I think we're barely covering our parks as it is, and any help that they can get would be appreciated, I'm sure, especially with the increased visitation. And I think that study of the annual visitation would probably back that. But yes, and thank you again for answering all my questions. I had 4 pages of questions, this is after I had a go at 2 presentations of the budget, and I still had 4 questions, and they all get answered. And thank you so much. And I also wanted to thank staff for this evening meeting. This was I've been advocating for this for a while, and I thought it was very important that this public hearing, first public hearing for the budget, be in the evening to accommodate people from the public, because I think this agency is quite large, and the more access that the public has to us, the better. And I think, and I just wanted to thank everyone, because I know it's a hardship on staff, it's a hardship on our employees, but I just want to thank everyone for coming here, and thank you. I think this has been a good meeting.
And I'll just add, Director Coffey is a member of the Finance Committee, so he did hear the full presentation. He was unable to make it this evening.
Yeah.
If there are no further comments from the board, I won't do too much. It's great going last. Everybody said it all. But once again, congratulations to staff, finance. Easily readable, the new project list with the photos, with the all of the new information. It was easily readable. All of the questions I had were answered. I appreciate that. I'm very, very excited, and I won't pick the beautiful projects that I'm real interested in, but I'm really excited that we were kind of driven towards some of the things I've always been interested in. Wildfire hazard reduction, stewardship challenges, the blue-green algae. I'm glad we're addressing that. Dredging of some of our lakes, dealing with invasive species. The IPM assessment, I think, is going to be really, really key, and I'm very happy we've dealt with that issue. I'm ecstatic that we're getting more FTEs to try to deal with that philosophical question of, do you buy up all the land first and try to staff it, or do you, or whatever the configuration is. I think we're doing it the right way, though, and I'm glad we're doing that. And as with Director Rosario, thanks for the night meeting. I know it's tough. It's past my bedtime, but I'm glad it happened. So if there's no further comments, I will close the public hearing, and we will come again in 2 weeks. If there are further questions, we'll have those questions answered, and then hopefully we'll have a tremendous, incredibly large, robust budget approved on December 18th at our board meeting then. So, Member Rosario.
The position for the intern at the Cultural Resources, how much is that in money? I think it's like
It's 0.18 FTE allocation, so it's that many hours. I can't calculate it quite in my head, but it was, interns, as Mr. O'Connor said, work about 4 to 6 months on a project, so 0.18 FTEs was allocated at that time. And we continue to have our internship program, but we just don't always get the right person in every cycle.
Okay. I'm just interested if there's a need. I hate to see us have that key position leave or be vacant when we need more oral histories done. So
I think there's the intern program. The normal one is in the HR budget, and we go through a process to
Yes, it's a base budget. It's there. It's
part
not a
of our
money
budget,
issue. It's
so.
getting the person who wants to do it issue.
Great. Well, I'm the lucky one. I get to stand up here and hear all of the positive comments, but I do want to thank the team. It's a team effort throughout the entire district, not even just the finance department, but if the people that worked on the budget would like to stand, Pam, Mona, Matthew James, who else do I see in here? Is Deborah Spalding here? Here, she's standing in the back. Those are some of the key workhorses, but there's many, many other people that have been part of this budget process, so thank you to all of you.
Thank you for your good work. All right. right, our next item is the election of board officers for 2019. And as is the tradition of our board, each year at this time, we form a nominating committee and we elect new officers. So that's what we're going to do tonight. At the last board meeting, the nominating committee, which was Directors Lane, Coffey, and myself got together and went through the arduous task of screening new officers. And we do have a slate to present before you tonight. And that slate is Member Wieskamp as president, Member Corbett vice president, Member Rosario treasurer, and Member Coffey secretary. Is there any discussion on this?
I move that these officers be elected.
We have a motion by Member Lane, a second by Member Dotson. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 6-0. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
New officers. And you will be you'll be taking office on our January 15th meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds good.
First meeting in January.
It is an honor always. You can't say that in all organizations. Looking around the world as it exists now, but for the parks, yes, it is good. So thank you.
Okay, we'll move now to board and staff reports, actions taken by other jurisdictions affecting the Park District. General Manager Doyle.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Board, for your hard work yourself on the budget. The only formal action is the town of Moraga, which actually turned down a proposal for development adjacent to Valley Hill Road. It is the Brazzoni property off of Bollinger Canyon. The council rejected that project as a 26-lot subdivision that would have been adjacent to the north of our property on Valley Hill Road. It also the council had concerns that it wasn't consistent with the general plan or the hillside ordinance. So they basically say go back and start over, which there were, as it's frequently said, elections have consequences, and there are new council members that are a majority of pro-open space council members on that town. So interesting, unexpected vote, frankly. So I think that'll be helpful. Director Lane.
So, since this is a property that's directly across from our future staging area, what are the implications for the opening of this staging area?
Two schools of thought, and it's going to be the recommendation of the general manager that we proceed with our own planning. We don't know when that's going to be approved, so if you wait forever to see if they'll dedicate a wider road, you might get a wider road in 10 years or 5 years or whatever, but we'd be waiting that long. So with the complete rejection of the current plan, they're going to be starting over with everything, including CEQA. So we're going to go forward with our planning process. There are right-of-way issues that impact both owners, ourselves, Mr. Brazzoni, and others. So we'll have to resolve those as far as the right-of-way. That doesn't prevent us in any way from planning the future use of that side of the park. It may mean that we get comments from that adjacent property owner that aren't positive, but that's the way it is. I have two other very quick actions that did not make the deadline for printing, and I just wanted the board to know. I think, because they're both very important and high priorities for the board, fitting that we have the beautiful Vasco Caves, with one of the most significant archaeological Native American sites we have in the district. But the regulatory agencies have approved the management plan for both the Vasco Hills and the Byron Wetlands property, and that includes the responses from the regulators, but also I think it was on the agenda for the HCP itself last night, or is it tonight? Yes. It was. I think it was. Okay, so We believe this is a major step in finalizing that, and we plan to put this on the executive committee as soon as we get the final, bring that information, what it means to have that. But it basically means we can move forward with our own uses and plans for those two parks. It's actually Byron Hills Wetlands and the Vasco Caves area, the whole corridor along Vasco Road. So that's a significant step and accomplishment. They'll next be working on, the HCP will next be working on the Black Diamond area, which includes, I believe, Deer Valley is part of that. So that's where they go next. I don't have more details at this time, but we'll give a full report to the board. But it's good news. The second major action is that the Navy and the Wildlife Services have completed their discussions for the approval to transfer the Concord Naval Weapons Station property to the district. So we are moving forward with the Navy and to move forward our beneficial conveyance, and that is a very exciting action, and we will bring that forward for more detail as well. But it's really the final approval we need to move forward on our own plans to get the property, and that's an example where we have moved our land use planning forward before we've accepted the property, knowing we're going to get the property. So it's a good example that we can start processes, and we're well along. So that is a much delayed, very challenging situation, but we're very pleased that the Navy and the wildlife agencies have reached agreement.
Thank you. Any comments on those? Then we'll move to General Manager's comments.
Thank you very much. We have no formal presentation tonight. I just would like to say and remind everybody that the holiday charity luncheon is tomorrow. I don't know how hard it'll be raining, if it'll be raining, but it's forecasted. But it's our opportunity to be grateful and thankful to both our staff and for a great year that the district has had. This has been a tremendously successful year for the district, and it's a great event in our new building. And we don't think we can get down to the new pier because they're still under construction, but it is getting close. But that's very exciting as well. But so I hope to see everybody there tomorrow for a nice feast and some entertainment. So I think that's great. I just want to thank the board for all the work again, both on Measure FF and also this very detailed and large budget that we have to wade through, and I really appreciate the work of the staff. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Any comments on any of the reports? I would like to commend the district fire staff that completed the EMT recertification class. I know that I think Mr. Rosario will agree that's a pretty tough class, and it's a great level of training that our fire personnel have, and it's a great benefit to the folks that need it in our parks. So my commendation to them. If there's nothing else, are there any announcements from the closed session?
Director Waspy, there's one announcement from the closed session. By a vote of 6-0 with Director Coffey absent, the board authorized initiation of litigation, the particulars of which will be made public when a complaint is on file.
Thank you very much. Move to board committee reports. We have the committee meeting, the meeting of the Finance Committee on October 24th of 2018. Anyone have any questions, comments?
Good work.
Yeah, excellent work. Thank you. And we also had and we have a report of the meeting of the Executive Committee on November 1st. Questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll move to our second public comment session. Any public comments?
No, President Waspy, no comments.
All right. Then we'll move to board comments. And we'll start with Member Corbett.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Since Thanksgiving happened, it seems like more than a week ago, right? Not that long ago. I don't have too much to report. However, I did attend the November 28th Finance Committee meeting, and you saw the results of that tonight, so that was great. And then also on the 29th, I attended the Board Operations Committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Rosario.
Yes, I had a very light schedule because right after the election I took off for vacation and then got back in time for the November 19th board meeting, or the 20th. But I just wanted to, I did attend the Finance Committee on the 28th. My only comment today is I really would like to see a discussion before the board about the including East Bay Mud on the class and comp. That was brought up today. And then also discussion about using our police department for investigations. So I'd like to see that on our agenda in the very, very near future. So thank you.
Thank you. Member Dotson. Merry Christmas to you. Member Wieskamp.
No wonder you're so popular. I attended the LAVCO meeting, last one of the year for Alameda County. The Foundation annual planning meeting, it was great to meet all of those people who are doing such a terrific job raising money and spending it on such worthy causes. It's amazing what they can do, and they're so willing to do it. And I appreciated the opportunity to be there. Operations on the 29th, and I don't know about anybody else, but I'm looking forward to the Christmas party tomorrow. So our employees deserve a good time, and thank you for sharing it with the board members. We appreciate that opportunity. I'm not sure where it should take place, but I myself would like to learn more about the Special District Forum. It's planning. I don't know whether it needs to come before one of our committees or whatever, but I think I would appreciate having some knowledge.
We're planning to do that very soon. We just had an executive
Well, you've had
team
lots
report.
going on. We got through the budget, so that should do it. So I'll go along with Whitney and say Merry Christmas.
Member Lane.
Thank you. A great Thanksgiving, which included turkey and a lot of ping pong.
Okay.
But it has been pretty quiet. However, I did have an interesting meeting with the Danville city manager, Joe Calabrico, which I'd be happy to share things with people if they're interested. Then November 28th, I participated in an all-day strategic planning meeting for future plans for the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail. I had a chance to go into the National Park Service office in San Francisco at 333 Bush, and it was really very interesting to see all those park people. The strategic planning meeting had about 20 people from different locations, including Bureau of Land Management and people from Arizona. So it was a very interesting day, and I want to report I did transit everywhere. Bus, BART, bus, park and ride, in the rain. And then finally, I did take a little somewhat muddy hike at Sycamore Valley Open Space, and I saw a new sign there. It was underneath the grazing animals sign, and it said, "Calves are in the park." So whoever put it up, I thought it was a very fine sign. It was direct. It said, sometimes calves are there by themselves. Don't get excited. And I thought it was, helpful information for hikers in the park. That's about it.
Great, thank you. Well, on November 29th, I attended the Operations Committee meeting, and I also left that meeting and went to the HASPA meeting, a Hayward Area Shoreline Planning Agency, and it was pretty exciting. We hired a consultant to finally do the shoreline master plan for the Hayward Shoreline, and we're all very excited about that, and we're starting moving on things down there. On November 30th, I attended the Castro Valley tree lighting ceremony at the Castro Village. My thanks to the police department, the fire department, and the lifeguard service for being out there in force with decorated police, fire, and lifeguard vehicles and decorated officers in holiday cheer. The next night I went to the Hayward tree lighting ceremony, and that was a nice event also. I looked forward tomorrow to the district holiday party, and as a reminder to folks on the board, the PAC dinner is Monday evening. Hopefully everybody can get there. It's a great way to have some fellowship with our great PAC members. And just a question, if I may, of the police department, I noted on, I forgot to ask on the general manager's report on what you folks have been doing. On November 3rd, an officer was injured. It was noted, and the perpetrator was charged with an assault with a deadly weapon. So I'm hoping the officer is well. I know it's HIPAA rules; you can't tell me what's going on, but please wish the officer well. I hope he's doing well. Anybody else? I knew you would. Member Rosario.
I just wanted to ask Chief Tiley, are our firefighters home from Paradise? Good. Welcome them back and thank them for their service. I think we're all appreciative of what they had to go through, and I'm glad they're home. Thank you.
That's it. We're done. Thank you. Thank you all for showing up tonight. It was great. Thanks for sticking it out, staff members. We are adjourned.